go over class notes day 6. This is going to be monetarism, velocity of money, in classical theory of inflation. So classical theory of inflation, the classical economists, remember, they're the long-run aggregate supply, that in the long run nothing matters. The economy, all that matters is land, labor, capital, technology, and the economy is self-correcting. So they're saying there's a clear connection between the supply of money and prices. Changes in the money supply don't affect real GDP, they just affect nominal GDP. So I use the idea, I guess not really an analogy, idea class, if everybody in the United States got $250 million, tomorrow, would everybody be able to buy a Black Hawk helicopter? And the answer is no. Prices would increase exponentially, we'd have hyperinflation, and because there's a limit of land, labor, capital, prices would adjust. So there would be no more Black Hawk helicopters because everybody had $250 million. There's still the scarce amount. So if you increase the money supply, you increase price level, you decrease price level. And we've seen this with hyperinflation in Zimbabwe, in Germany in the 1920s, in Brazil in the 1990s. And we've talked about this in class. So monetarists, this is kind of taking the idea of classical economists, because classical economists are right in the long run, but in the short run, changes in the money supply do affect real variables, and it can increase aggregate demand of real GDP. We've seen this most recently in 2009, 2010, during the Great Recession. Ben Bernanke and the Fed doing aggressive expansionary monetary policy, and that had an impact on real GDP. Monetarists believe in the classical theory of inflation, that inflation is caused by printing money in the long run. But they also say that the Fed, classical economists are more free market, less command, less government control, and that it should be the Fed, not the government, but the central bank should be the one controlling and steering the economy. And they assume the velocity of money is constant. Velocity of money is how quickly a dollar can be used and reused, and measures how the money supply responds when monetary policy is enacted, how quickly the money multiplier works. So in Brazil, during hyperinflation, my guess is the velocity of money was in the hundreds, if not 1,000, meaning that every year money was spent 1,000 times because prices were going up by the day, by the hour. As soon as you got money, you spent money. In the United States, the velocity of money right now is constant, and it's much lower than that. People might spend money every 10, 12 days. There's no rush to spend money. There's no need to hold money. Going back to our analogy of the circulatory system, the financial sector being the circulatory system, velocity of money would be the heart rate. So for the most part, there's a range of velocity of money where it's not that big a deal. But if it gets too high, that's indicative of a problem. If your heart rate is 220, that means there's something wrong in your body. That's a bad sign. And if your heart rate gets too low, if it's like 5, again, that's indicative of a problem. The velocity of money basically stops at like 2 or 1. That means people aren't spending money, they're saving. That's, to that extreme, that's not a good thing. That would be indicative of a recession or depression or serious economic uncertainty. This is the equation of exchange. It seems crazy at first, but then when we break it down, it makes a lot of sense. What it's saying is quantity times price level, how much goods are produced in a country times the prices, which is nominal GDP, equals how much money there is times the velocity of that. So if the United States nominal GDP is 20 trillion, and let's use the cash money supply, which is 1.39 trillion, but let's use the actual amount in the United States, which is closer to $565 billion, and you say every year $20 trillion is spent inside the United States, and they use $565 billion. How many times is that money used each year? Answer is roughly 35 times, and that's just the velocity of money. So what we're saying is the money supply times the velocity, so this would be 565 times 35 equals 20 trillion. That's what the equation of exchange is saying. And velocity of money equals nominal GDP divided by money supply. The Fisher effect, oh, apologies. The Fisher effect is just basically interest rates adjust to inflation in the long run. So if there are inflationary expectations, the nominal interest rates will hit that first. And historically, you can see that the nominal interest rates go up before inflation happens and they go down before deflation happens. And it's basically, we know R equals N minus I. The Fisher effect is nominal equals R plus I. And this is the Fisher.